What's up, everybody? My name is Jeremy Siskin. I am the author of the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series, books 1, 2, and 3. And book 3, by the way, is obviously the newest one. It's special because it's all about modal and modern jazz. And then also, got your classic, playing solo jazz piano, a classic in the field, if I don't mind saying so myself. All available at jeremysiskin.com. If you order there, you get an autograph. I'll ship it to you personally. I'll put a little love into that envelope before I ship it out. Today's subject is 6 things that you should know about the 11th. Okay, the 11th is generally the forgotten scale degree, the forgotten chord tone in jazz. We talk sure about the root, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, the 13th. Oftentimes we're leaving out the 11th, but not today. Today, we are including it. My mom was born on February 11th, so, there's something special here. Okay, so the first thing you should definitely know is that the 11th is the same as the 4th scale degree. So in the key of C, the 11th is this F natural. And so if you're finding the 11th, you can think about the major scale, or you can think about the minor scale, any minor scale, and go up 4 notes, and you should get there. And F, G, A, B flat. That B flat is the 11th. So whenever you're thinking about upper extensions, the 9th, the 11th, the 13th, you can subtract 7, and you will get the number, the more simple number of the scale. All right, most of you probably knew that already. Now, number 2 is big. A bunch of you probably know this as well. The 11th is pretty universally avoided on major and dominant chords. So, whereas it's fair game to add in the 9th or the 13th when you're playing a major 7th or a dominant 7th chords, we don't play the 11th. And I'll give you the reason right here. Ooh, it's bad, right? And all I'm playing is that normal 7th chord with that 11th. And the reason, the primary reason, is this interval. I don't want to give away my other parts of the list. So the interval between the major 3rd and the 11th is this interval that we call minor 9th. It's an octave plus 1 half step, which is one of the most frightening dissonances in music. And in most contexts in jazz, we like a lot of dissonance. We generally find that this minor 9th is going a step too far. Literally a step too far from the octave, a half step too far. But usually this dissonance is too grating, even for us jazz musicians. So on major and dominant chords, we're usually going to leave that 11th out. And that also means melodically, if I'm improvising over F major, we say that you can use the F major scale, and that's correct, but that 11th is going to be a tense note. Right? And I always tell students, when you think about dissonant, don't think about that it sounds bad. Think about that it needs resolution. And so you can use the 11th as long as it properly resolves. And this note really wants to pull downwards. It has this really strong downwards pull. So I wouldn't say never use it, but I would say make sure that it resolves downwards as you're using it. All right. That's not working well. Interesting. Cool. So we're gonna switch spots here. So number 3 is that the 11th is lovely and warm sounding on chords with a minor 3rd. So remember, the problem with the 11th is that it forms that minor 9th interval with the major 3rd. But when we have any kind of a chord with a minor 3rd, and that includes, of course, minor chords, minor major 7ths, half diminished chords, diminished chords, the 11th is going to be a really nice warm sound. So, for instance, here's F minor, and I've got the 11th right on top there. Okay. Here's C minor. F is the 11th. And same thing if it's C minor major 7. It's a little pointier sounding, sure, but the 11th still sounds pretty good. If it's half diminished, the 11th is a great sounding chord tone. And even a diminished chord. Okay. So for any of those types of chords that have a minor third, the 11th is really fair game. Okay, and improvisationally too, you can use the 11th without resolving it to the minor third. If I'm playing C minor, that F does not need any resolution. It sounds pretty nice as is. So that's sweet. It's one of Miles Davis's favorite notes to play on a minor chord. So a sus chord is a chord in which the fourth replaces the third. And it's very key to think that the fourth replaces the third as essential tones. Okay, if you've been watching my videos, reading my books, you might know that I think that it's very important to divide chords into essential tones and color tones. Okay, and essential tones are tones that need to be in the chord and want to be in a certain place on the piano or in a certain range in other accompanying instruments too. They usually want to be kind of in this range around middle C, which I refer to as the magic range. The magic range? Is that what I call it? The magic zone? Something like that. I should know. So when you have a sus chord, that means that we're going to substitute the fourth, which is, of course, the same pitch as the 11th, which is why I'm talking about it here, in instead of the third. So instead of having a C dominant seventh like this, a C sus 7 would go like this. Now, generally, sus chords are dominant chords. It is possible to have a sus major seventh, right? So here's a C normal seventh, a sus major seventh would sound like this. A much, much rarer chord to see than a sus chord. Now, I know some of you from the pop world, or who maybe have played Broadway or something like that, you're like, well, there's sus 4, but there's also sus 2. And in jazz, if you see sus, it means that sus 4. It means that we're replacing the third with the fourth. And some of you also might be thinking, and we'll talk about this a bit more later, that sus means suspended, and therefore it has to resolve. In jazz, it's not always true. If you play a tune like Maiden Voyage, it has all these sus chords that don't resolve at all. So in jazz, and especially in modal jazz, we might have these sus chords that don't necessarily go anywhere. The fourth does not resolve to the third. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Now, number 5, I think, is actually really interesting, which is that we've said, okay, major seventh, dominant seventh chords, we can't use this pitch, this 11th. But actually, if the fourth or the 11th is treated as the essential tone, usually meaning that it's in that magic range that is lower than the third, we can make these two notes coexist. It's only when their roles are such that the third will be lower that it's a problem. So check it out. Again, if I try to play an F7 with the 11th above the third, sounds awful. I think most of us would agree. But if I flip these two notes, so I'm going to put the B flat where the A is and vice versa, this doesn't sound awful. Now, this doesn't sound like a dominant chord, really. This would be more of a sus chord, and the third is being used to color, like the thirds become a color tone instead of an essential tone. So the fourth and third, I should really say, can coexist with the third if it's the essential tone. These two notes actually can coexist in a chord really quite nicely, but only if the fourth or 11th is treated as the essential tone, and the third then is just reinterpreted as a color tone. You'll also find that something like this sounds okay. So here, the third and the fourth are right next to each other. So if that fourth is in the magic range. If it's in that range roughly between C3 and G4, then it can coexist with a third, which is actually pretty cool. So sus doesn't actually mean no third. It means that the third is not the essential tone. The fourth is the essential tone. And then number 6 mentions that the fourth or the 11th is actually often used as a suspension, meaning that it's used to resolve to the third as kind of a delay. So if we're doing a 2-5-1 to B flat, sometimes, so I'm starting on C minor 7, so it'll be C minor 7, F7, B flat, major. Let me sketch this out for you guys here. So sometimes we can hold over the 7th from this C minor chord as we get to the F7. And then it will resolve to the third. And sometimes composers, arrangers, people who write lead sheets will indicate this, but much more often musicians just choose to do this for themselves. So listen again. And this is true both in ballads and in medium tempo. That fourth, I'm holding the 7th of the minor chord over, it becomes the 4th of the dominant chord, and then I'm resolving it a little later to create a little bit more motion, a little bit more color. Let me show you how that works on a ballad before I end this video. Let's see what kind of lead sheets I have here. Let's go to Alone Together, not necessarily a ballad. But what I'm going to do is every time I get to a dominant chord, it's going to be a lot of A7s, I'm going to hold over the 4th before resolving it to the 3rd. So on each of these dominant chords, we're going to do what we call a 4-3 suspension. So on the A7 here, it's going to be a D resolving to C sharp, same thing here. G resolving to F sharp here, G resolving to F sharp again. A resolving to G sharp. It's the 4th resolving to the 3rd every time if you don't understand what I'm doing. D to C sharp. Cool. So then watch how this works. I'll block it out. And then if I were going to really try to play it, make it sound nice. Okay, so if you're anything like me, as you hear that, it doesn't sound like I'm doing anything out of the norm. It actually sounds kind of like normal jazz playing that's just really nice and colorful, I hope. So using that 4-3 suspension on dominant chords really only is a really nice thing to add. And you can see it works on every single one of the dominant chords here in Alone Together. All right, so let's review. Oh no, I don't know that I can find that other sheet that I was just at. It's one of these manuscript papers. Let's hope I get lucky. No. Okay. let's not review. The 11th. Yep, it's lost forever. We'll never know these 5 things about the 11th again. There they are. 5 things about the 11th, like I planned all along. 1, it's the same as the 4th scale degree. 2, it's avoided on major and dominant chords. 3, it sounds lovely and warm on chords with a minor third. 4, a sus chord means that the 4th or 11th replaces the 3rd. 5, the 11th can coexist with the 3rd if the 11th is the essential tone and placed in that magic range. And then 6, it's used as a suspension in a kind of 4-3 suspension. All right. I hope that you enjoyed that. If you did, say something about suspense and being left in suspense. And if this is a good level for you, then I bet you could find things that you like in both Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 1 and Book 2. Some things that we talked about were a little bit more basic. Some things were a little more advanced. But you can head on over to jeremysiskin.com and support my book selling habit. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.